multiple ways. I mean, basically, teach the child first to learn how to learn. Teach the child to develop its memory, not in the computer, but to develop its memory, which is imaginative and associative. You train the child to develop its poetic soul, to develop its multiple intelligences that both of you have mentioned. And then you say to the child, you've got all these intelligences, you've got all this capacity, you're a scientist, and there's all that technology. Use your brain and use it. We don't have to tell them how to use the technology. We give them the gift of their own minds and let them guide into the future with us as part of the team. So a good teacher, definition, another definition for the teacher. Teacher is a very important guide into the universe of the child's mind. And then the child can create the planet into a paradise. Into a paradise. In fact, when you look at mind maps, do we
here in this screen?
Yeah,
Tony, here.
he's in fact Hugo, that is seated over there, is capturing the thoughts of the audience as we speak, and you can see over there this information being captured.
So this is the intelligent use of mind maps, the intelligent use of the brain, with the intelligent use of technology to develop a thinking, intelligent tool, the mind map. And just a little segue, Hugo is an intelligent father. So similar question to yours about technology and what does the child do in school. He encouraged his child, Sophie, to just explore her own mind. And as a little girl, at the age of 10, she fell in love with mind maps. She was obviously in love with her father as a hero. And he was a hero because he was kind. He was developing his own intelligence. He was looking after her. He was doing well. He was making mistakes. And when he made mistakes, what did he do? Learned from them and accepted them, and then became even more successful. And he helped develop that mind map. His daughter fell in love with mind maps at the age of, sorry to be,
oh, it's fine, it's fine.
To be at the age of 10, 11, 12, she fell in love with mind maps. And she just did them all the time. You know, she would come home from school, couldn't wait to go and do mind maps rather than watch the television. By the time she was 12, this is just an intelligent beacon, she would go around and help her friends. She would say, look, you know, we can mind map. And we can mind map all our subjects. And she got straight A's, easily top marks in school, and it was all easy. It was all fun. And you see that mind map over there on the wall. And do have a look at that. That is a mind map done by an older teenage girl who was 12 when she was teaching other people how to mind map because she couldn't wait to help her friends. And that is a mind map that that daughter of Hugo did. The mind map is a lot of mind maps. Sophie fell in love with Harry Potter. And she read every one of the books. And she thought, how beautiful.
It's over there. It's over there.
It's over there, yes.
Aha. So it's over there on the screen. And it's over there on the board.
Paper.
Yes. So she took each book purely for herself, not for school, just because she wanted to do it. She fell in love with the magician, the adventure, the love story, the future. So she mind mapped every one of Harry Potter books. That's a lot of material, extra, just because she did it as her hobby. She then did those mind maps, and then she thought, it's the Harry Potter 1 book.
Universe.
So, yes, good word. The universe of Harry Potter. So she combined all the mind maps into one super mind map. And she did it, and she was so happy with it, she's done the original to send to J.K. Rowling. She's going to give it. I'm going to be the messenger. I have to give it to J.K. Rowling and say, here is a gift from a child who you, J.K., have given her a gift. And she's now giving it to you back as a flower of intelligence. So the mind map is a flower of intelligence. So wherever you are teaching children how to do mind maps, and we three are actually going to be working together for the next 5 years, as I mentioned earlier, we are simply helping the Garden of Eden to have more and more and more flowers of intelligence. So the teacher, a new definition, the teacher is the gardener who helps grow the flowers of intelligence. So do note that, that's you. Right? The teacher is the gardener who helps grow the flowers of intelligence in the Garden of Eden, i.e. paradise. That's what you teachers are doing.
Excellent. Thank you,
Yes.
Tony. I have one very short and very quick question about if you can define intelligence, Jorge, please.
Yeah. Intelligence, when talking about intelligence, we must talk about intelligences. And then there's no such definition as being an intelligent person if we just say that an intelligent person has some competencies and skills for doing something. If you don't also include the other part of the equation, which is the value that that person adds to society. So every definition of intelligence has to do with skills, competencies, but also the other part of the equation, the result of that via the behaviors, the values displayed on a day-to-day basis by that individual or that community. So talking about a definition of intelligence, again, you have to refer to multiple intelligences. We're just at the onset from a neuroscience perspective of what is intelligence. And we're just learning to go more deeply into that subject. What we know is that if we use the correct formula, and just to expand a bit on the question before, which is why kids are not adopting the technology for learning, why kids are scared in some cases of seeing screens and interacting with a computer for learning. Have you seen or heard about the concept of death by PowerPoint? Well, that's basically the same as these giant bedrooms like the libraries. When you use PowerPoint, a good technology, in the wrong way, with lots of bullets, boring statements, lots of numbers, etc. So what you obtain from an audience is, again, 50% or more will be sleep, would sleep would be dormant. If you use the same technology in a different manner, with images, associations, in the afternoon we're going to present this book, The Most Important Graph in the World. And what it contains is the formula, the correct formula, of how to communicate information to the brain. So the brain can capture that information on the long term and then build knowledge, build these flowers of intelligence, so you could use these flowers of intelligence for creating creativity, for creativity, innovation, problem solving, etc. So instead of a boring PowerPoint slide, just imagine interactivity with images, associations, and then this, the most important graph in the world, talks about things such as the von Restorff effect, which is one of the most important effects to raise the awareness of the mind for capturing information. If I say to you, what is the greatest icon or monument of a given city, for example, El Cairo, Egipto, what is? The pyramids. If I say India,
Taj Mahal.
Taj Mahal. If I say, for example, Paris, France,
Torre Eiffel.
if I say Sydney, Australia,
Opera.
exactly. So it's salient. It's immediately captured by the brain. And it's the same. When you devise learning material for kids, you should use this type of metaphorical language, stories, images, movement, etc., and then you will capture the imagination of that child, and that child will interact with technology in the way an intelligent society should do.
I didn't mention at the beginning, Tony, Jorge, but we are broadcasting live through streaming video in internet. So Morelia, Los Cabos, Guadalajara, Puerto Peñasco en Sonora, Culiacán, Durango, Guatemala City, Bogotá, Barranquilla, Bucaramanga, Colombia, Sao Paulo, Brazil, y Caracas, Venezuela. All these cities are watching you right now through streaming media. So to all of them, hello. More questions?
Buenas tardes.
Micros.
Welcome.
Micro over here and over there, please.
Sorry, you have both been talking about using the correct formula, but you haven't mentioned what this formula is. Right now, you mentioned something about a book. Is that the formula? Do you have the book, or are you planning to, or something about a book, or what?
And there are multiple formulae. So there are many formulae. Well, actually, can we
See the map or the presentation?
Yes, let's look at the mind map. And think of any mind map, the mind map that introduced me in the morning. What are the rules for thinking? The rules for learning? And let me just quickly give you the thinking rules, the thinking laws, the thinking guidelines, which are the same for the mind map. So, in your thinking, in your note making, always start with an image in the center. Why? Why an image in the center? Yeah, it's graphic, and because the picture is worth 1,000 words. So use image, and the central image stimulates your radiant thinking, including especially your explosive creative thinking, your creativity. Number 2, use images throughout your mind map, because that gives your mind map more power for your imagination. So the mind map is a powerful thinking tool that helps in all areas of your multiple intelligences. Number 3, use color. In your notes, color. It makes your mind colorful, it stimulates your brain cells, it stimulates your creativity, it improves your memory, it helps you highlight, it helps you cluster, it helps you analyze. Color is not a nice emotional weak tool. It's a totally powerful, scientific, thinking, creative tool. So use color. Yeah, wonderful. In your mind maps, your thinking, use dimension in your thinking. Navigate your spatial thinking universe. In your thinking and your mind map, use organic lines, curvilinear, not straight. Why not straight lines? Because they're rigid, because they're boring, because they send you to sleep and keep you in prison. Not a good idea. Curvilinear gives you rhythm, the music of the shape. Watch people doing mind maps that are linear, i.e. pre-mind maps, and they're pretty quiet. But you watch somebody doing a mind map with curvilinear, and they're mind mapping like this, kind of. It's music. It's visual music. So you use your notes, organic lines. Another key thinking formula, you must use key words, not phrases. So you multiply the capacity of your thinking to radiate into the infinite edges of the universe. So for example, if you're noting problem solving, don't note problem solving. On the mind map, put problem, one word, and then radiate from that solving. Because then you have problem solving, and therefore problem what else? Problem results, problem creating. You're creating problems.
Provoke. Yeah.
Problem, right. Provoke. So when you use one word, it multiplies your opportunities for thinking. Phrases hold you in like prison sentences. So sentences, notes are like prisons, prison sentences. Also in your thinking, use association. Always link in your thinking. When Jorge was talking about memory and memory banks, your memory is a giant vault, archives of images, the senses, and the connections, the associations. And the more you train that, the better the child's mind flowers. Again, you're developing those flowers of intelligence. When you are using mind maps, quite obviously, what side of the brain are you using? Both. So another formula, develop all the cortical skills in synergetic mode, synergetically. So words, for example. If people think that words are intelligence and it's all the left side of the brain and that's where it is, it's not true, is it? If I say to you, well, actually, the brain is very interesting in terms of us developing our intelligences individually and together. I mean, it takes half a minute and your brain is going dead, isn't it? Because I'm using words only left brain. But if I'm using my right brain, I'm using rhythm. And therefore changing the way in which your brain will learn or think about what I'm going to say next. So it's both sides of the brain being integrated, being integrated. Another thing to do is always to apply the definitions. Look at those definitions and everything I've said about the rules and guidelines of thinking, all of those are teacher definitions. You know, the teacher teaches this, encourages that, helps develop the imagination, helps make connections between ideas and people and all the elements on the planet, the network. So what is the most important job in the world? It's you. It is you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. We received a question from Bogotá in Colombia. Adriana Romero is saying, what's the key element to start when you do not know nothing about mind map? How to start? You always have to start with the main idea or the key central idea, or you can start with some complement or lateral ideas and then building the mind map. Jorge, please.
A mind map is a reflection of the natural architecture of brain thinking. And therefore, when mind maps are done, they resemble what we are doing in our heads. We are not conscious of what happens exactly. We don't have a photograph or a camera inside our brain. But if we do, and now with magnetic resonance imaging, functional magnetic resonance imaging, we could do that to a certain extent. And what we will find is when we think about something, a network, the network is already there, but a network of thinking and several thoughts is created on the spot, on the fly. And what you see is a center, the main thinking, and then all the networks of information flowing around that. So if you are thinking, for example, on your projects for the rest of the year, then everything associated with these projects is going to come to your mind somehow. And if it's well organized, it's going to come easier. So a mind map is just a resemblance of that. So how to start a mind map, you have to start with the central image, not text, but an image, because that's how we learn. The language of the brain is not English, Spanish, Zulu, or Chinese. It's images and associations. Therefore, when we associate, we start at the center, and then we create the mind map by putting what we call the basic ordering ideas. The same as in the brain. We start thinking about something, and then the basic ordering ideas, the basic keywords on the ordering ideas, and basic images. And then go and go and go and grow the mind map. How could you grow the mind map, or to what extent can you grow a mind map? Infinitely. If we take whatever of the branches that you have there, can you add another branch? And from that branch, could you add yet another branch? Of course. So this is the infinite nature of mind maps. But at the same time, if your objective is, for example, to set up a strategic plan, then what you are going to do is make a mind map and stop until you get your objective. Perhaps an action plan, if that is the case. Or perhaps a plan for getting you married, and then coordinating all the stuff around that. The mind map is simply a resemblance of our natural thinking abilities.
For those of you who likes to there is an app already for Apple to perform this duty and to build the mind map on screen, isn't it?
Tony has devoted his last 7 years of life to developing a tool, because these tools were available before, and we were interacting with these tools before, but they were linear tools. Some of you may have used them. But this is the latest, the state-of-the-art or latest version of the tool. And it's called iMind Map, like iPod, etc., iMind Map. And this iMind Map runs in Apple, I mean in the Apple operating system, but also Windows or Linux. And there's also a version in the, for tablet PCs like iPad and Android. So this is the first software that really resembles what we do by hand, creating organic lines with text following the curve, with images, third dimension, if you could show the third dimension, the dimensionality of the map. So just as we think, and this is just only getting better, because now with this tool, you could also collaborate. It's not only an individual mind map, but a collaboration tool.
Could
Yes.
be, of course, Tony, please.
Yes, you can check it on the web. You can go to Jorge's website. You can go to my website, which is obviously very difficult to remember. It's called tonybuzan.com. And also thinkbuzan.com. And both those three websites have my maps on the website, so you can go and look at my maps in education. You can look at business mind maps. You can look at videos where I will be talking about it. And also, in terms of the question from Bogota, how do you teach the children? What's the way you start? What age do you think it's a good idea to start? When do you begin to teach children?
We are coming to the final session of the conference. Of course, there are mics there for the last two questions. But I'd like to raise an issue that you haven't mentioned. Yes, Tony.
But so what age? 3 to 4? 3 to 4? And people normally think 3 to 4.
Works.
And how old? 3 to 4. Ladies and gentlemen, my maps are already used in the first day of the baby's life.
Really?
Babies think with my maps and watch them. You can see them checking the images, watching what the connections are.
We have a baby here, very recently born, actually. He is about
Over there.
2 months, three months.
Excelente.
And he is already using mind maps
Really?
in 3 different languages, actually.
Well, think about the baby's brain. What is the central image, right? The baby's born. What's the central image in its mind map? Mama, mother, boom. And are there main associations of mama? The main branches? What are the main branches of mama? Food and milk of food. Love, another branch, basic ordering idea.
Warm.
Love.
Warm.
Warmth, another branch. Education. Protection, safety, security. Slave. And so the baby learns from internal mind maps. So in the environment, in the baby's home, put images on the wall. Put the associations. Do the basic mind map. And the babies love it. It's a reflection of how their brains are working as soon as they are born. Soon as they're born.
Of course, yes. You haven't mentioned, even though you have spoken about intelligences, about emotional intelligence and the importance of now, for many, many years, we were taught and learned in a very rational system. And now, after Coleman and all the work of Howard Gardner, we know that multiple intelligences are a key element for modern education. What would you say about emotional intelligence and the big part of this element in education today?
As you know, when we think, when we act, when we behave as a human being, we are systemic by nature. We cannot be a computer, a rational mechanism only. So we have emotions, and these emotions translate from feelings to actions. So when we think consciously, we bring to this scratch pad of memory that I referred before, this short-term memory, working memory, not only our rational thinking, but also our emotions. And our emotions genetically prepared us for surviving. But as we are evolving as a society, our emotions also prepare us, and this is the latest news from neuroscience, and it's very good news, also for being good human beings. Basically for going for the common good, for ethical behaviors. So if we use emotions properly, they're like a springboard of creativity, a springboard for solving problems in society, a springboard for connecting with other people. If we use them in the wrong formula, or with the wrong formula, then emotions could be limiting, could be really like shackles that we put ourselves to our rational systems, and then we are depending on these emotions, and then we could have bad reactions. We could insult our loving people instead of adding value, because emotions can be also this way, no? You could, instead of doing good, simply behaving bad. But emotions intrinsically are like a springboard, like an added value or multiplier of our thinking. So if we use both, as with left and right, then in this case limbic system plus rational system, and we use them correctly, then that's why emotional intelligence is so important. Emotional intelligence includes understanding the other, understanding and empathically knowing the model of mind that the other person has. And this is metacognition. This is thinking about thinking. This is also what is called theory of the mind. So I can know what you're saying, and we're prepared for doing that as babies. But as Tony said, as in the creativity studies, there are studies on emotional intelligence, and as we get older, emotional intelligence goes down. But that's normal. But normal is not natural.
Any final questions before we leave?
Senor, I want to. Emotional intelligences.
Please.
Jorge and I approach that from very different perspectives, coming to a very similar conclusion. When I first learnt about emotional intelligence, something in my mind didn't quite agree with that. And I thought about it more and more and more. And I began to realize that we are all even more emotional than normally we are told. And that emotion exists. As Jorge was saying, it's programmed in, it's in the genes, and we survive using emotion. And that emotion can be negative, obviously, can be self-destructive, or it can be totally loving. Now, what is interesting is that the more positive emotion, love, tends, especially over time, to dominate. Love dominates. And all the studies, when people are showing love to people who are emotionally torn apart, love wins. helps us survive. I've been exploring that myself, and I actually believe that there is not an emotional intelligence. There's not an emotional intelligence. That emotion exists. Emotion is like an absolute force. It's there. When you use it intelligently, you are using your personal intelligence to manage the energy of your emotions. You are using your social intelligence to manage intelligently your emotions. So rather than being with people and always being angry and always being aggressive and nasty and whatever, with your social intelligence, you will actually say, everybody, I'm really angry. And that's okay. So you are using your social intelligence to manage and sculpt your emotions. So I don't think of emotions as an intelligence. They are the generator of all the intelligence in all the individual intelligences. So use your emotions as much as you possibly can to develop all your intelligences. It's like an engine.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tony. We have a question over there, please.
Dr. Buzan, you mentioned that the daydreaming was a skill, and this might be in two sections. Why do you consider daydreaming as a skill? And since we are working on developing skills, emotional or intellectual skills in schools, should we be working also on developing that skill?
Who is that questioner?
Over there.
Right. Is daydreaming a skill? Yes, it is. And just think, is this the last question?
Well, I think so, because we don't want to take too much of your time. I know you are flying every day. I just heard his schedule before arriving in Mexico City, and it was really tiring. So
no, that's not the reason I was asking is that I think this is a lovely ending in terms of our responses to daydreaming. What does it mean? So if it is the last question, but if there's another question, we'll have that and then we'll answer daydreaming.
please, go ahead, yes.
Yes, see?
Yes.
All right. Daydreaming. We've established that all of you are daydreamers. Most report cards around the world will say on the child's report, this child is not paying attention. This child does not concentrate well enough. This child's head is in the clouds. This child is not a good student. This child must listen to me, the teacher, more precisely. And I'm saying, if your child comes home with a report card that says, this child is a daydreamer and that's bad, you take that report card, you look at it where it says this child is a daydreamer, and you put A++. Well done, my child. Because the question is, what is the difference between the daydreamer, which is the average person, and the genius daydreamer? So they both daydream. They both daydream all day. They both daydream every day. They both enjoy their daydreams. But in terms of daydreaming, there is a difference between the unleashed genius and the unleashed genius. So just chat with your partners. What is the difference between the brain that daydreams and doesn't become a genius, and the brain that daydreams and does become a genius? Chat, what's the difference?
1 minute.
Sí.
Yes.
Uno minutas.
Uno minuto.
Nice.
Un minuto para... It's a good recency, 'cause
Exactly what I was thinking. Okay, group. What is the difference?
Yes.
What about the genius? Yes. Very good. The basic answer, well, I'll give you an expanded response to your correct answer. The genius generally has a big daydream, a good daydream. So the first important factor is that the genius has a good, big daydream. And let's just think of a couple of examples. If we take Leonardo da Vinci, what was Leonardo da Vinci's daydream? One of his daydreams was flying. That was one of his daydreams. He had another daydream, which was to learn how to use his senses, especially how to learn how to see. So his whole daydream was that wherever he was learning how to see. And when he was walking down the street in Firenze, he'd take a little notepad, sketch pad.
And draw.
Yeah, and he'd be walking, drawing. And he'd walk along, and if you were walking along the road or the street, and he would see your face, he would think, oh, yeah, very interesting face. Must draw the nose. And he learned how to see. So he had the daydream to develop all his senses, i.e., develop his brain. Another wonderful example is Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison. What was his main daydream?
The light bulb.
And it's in the textbooks that his goal was to invent the little light bulb. That wasn't his daydream. His daydream was a real daydream. His daydream was to light the planet Earth at night forever, so that any human being around the world in the future would always be able to see at any second of any hour, any day, in eternity. That's his daydream. Not just to invent a light bulb. And that's why he tried and he tried and he tried and he tried thousands and thousands of times to make the dream what? Come true. To come true. So the unleashed brain has the daydream and works to make that daydream come true, become real. What is the teacher going to do?
Unleash.
You've got all these children, and they have daydreams. So instead of saying, stop daydreaming in my class, pay attention to me because I know everything, you say, oh, you got a daydream?
Share with me.
Interesting, fascinating. Tell me. And the child will then be freed and will tell you. And the goal of the teacher will therefore be to be what? The shepherd
A guide.
of the daydreams. New definition of the teacher. Teacher is the shepherd of the child's daydreams, who helps and guides the child to make those dreams come true. That, ladies and gentlemen, is you. What beautiful profession to spend every moment of your day shepherding daydreams for the future of our planet and the future of the human race. Muchas gracias.
How a poetic way to end and conclude. Jorge, will you please address a few words as a conclusion, please?
Just that when talking about the most important graph in the world, some of the elements that you play with in terms of communicating the right message is using the natural abilities of the brain to also capture that information. And we had a primacy effect in this 2-hour presentation, and this is the recency effect. So the recency effect talks about that provided that there are no other effects present, the last things that you see or are communicated or read or whatever or experience in a session, being a session like this or any other session in your life, are the things that you can then have in your mind more readily available, that you could recall better. So I just would end up by saying that this last recency, I hope that it permeates your mind as one of the correct formulas for teachers, or not only correct, but super formulas for the teacher, no? Being a shepherd of these multiple intelligences and of daydreaming. Because if daydreaming is not there, creativity would not exist. But thankfully, to the brain, to our genetics, we have this powerful natural ability of daydreaming.
Well, it's been a privilege to have you here, both of you. Thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you, Leonardo.
We are convinced in this group of educators that we are facing a big change in the world, a big change in the minds of the little ones and the new generations. And we are convinced that we have to promote a big change in our teachers and professors to be guides and not to be conventional teachers of the past.
Sí.
Thank you very much for sharing your views and your thoughts, and I hope we will continue working in this direction. So, muchas gracias a todos, señoras y señores. Gracias. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias al señor Buzan, al maestro Castañeda por haber estado con nosotros. Está aquí el equipo completo de Sistema 1 para todos aquellos de ustedes que tengan alguna duda, alguna inquietud. Está aquí el equipo directivo para atender cualquier inquietud que ustedes tengan. Gracias por haber estado con nosotros esta mañana y muy buenos días. Gracias. Excellent.